This episode is proudly brought to you by Mapper Forward's workshop, It's Time to Become a Coffee Consultant. Learn how to diversify your revenue streams and create freedom from your day job while saying goodbye to that alarm clock forever by becoming a consultant within the coffee industry or directly to consumers who have shifted towards home brewing and home roasting. Protect your income from challenging times in the coffee value chain by taking this course today. Go to mapperforward.coffee/workshops or click the link in the show notes for details. Powered by DXB Live and World of Coffee Dubai, Mapper Forward is proud to be the official podcast partner of World of Coffee Dubai in 2024 for a second year in a row. Broadcasting live on YouTube from the show floor over 3 wonderful days, we'll bring you conversations with old friends and new faces who are here in Dubai exploring great opportunities together. Join the conversations live on YouTube or listen via our regular programming on podcast apps as we explore the theme, Empowering the Coffee Industry in 2024, as our series theme here at World of Coffee. Pro tip, follow us on Instagram at mapperforward.coffee to watch folks from around the world do Tim Tam Slams. If you know, you know. Welcome to the Daily Coffee Pro by Mapper Forward, friends. I'm your host, Lee Safar, and this is episode, who knows, of 15 of the Daily Coffee Pro by Mapper Forward here at World of Coffee Dubai 2024. We are getting towards the end of the third day, and I got a phone call from my dear friend, a text message from my dear friend Kim Thompson from Raw Coffee yesterday. And she said, you have to have our next guest on the podcast. And when Kim says you have to have someone on the podcast, I'm like, yes, ma'am. So Kim, shout out to you. Thank you for this. I'm sure this is going to be a great conversation. Raul Rodas, did I say it right?
Yeah, right.
Welcome to the podcast for the first time.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation. I'm happy to be here and just share and talk, and thanks to Kim as well.
Yes.
Yeah, of course.
She's the gem of the industry. You got all of this information about what we're talking about at like 1 a.m. So I don't know if you got a chance.
Fresh, yeah.
So why don't you tell everyone a little bit about you before we dive into what our question is?
So short kind of like version. I'm from Guatemala, and I've been in coffee like around 17, 18 years now.
Yeah.
I did a World Birthday Championship in 2012.
Okay.
So a long time ago.
It seems like a whole other world away.
Yeah, it was. I say that I was in a BS world, right? Like in the before scales. I mean, so it's just. But and I from that I started a roastery company, and then I started working with producers since then. And now I have a company called Paradigma Coffee Trading, which is like sourcing coffees from Guatemala and helping them to improve in naturals and anaerobics and processing in general.
Okay.
And also I migrate myself into Honduras as well to find those coffees and teach them how to make all of these naturals and processings. Mm-hmm. And also sourcing coffees from El Salvador to different friends around the region. Dubai and Saudi is one of the customers that we have, and we export coffee. And it's been quite of a ride and really interesting and like a learning curve in general. So yeah,
amazing. We're exploring the theme of this series here at World of Coffee Dubai. We're talking about empowering the coffee industry in 2024. It's a volatile time in coffee, no matter where you are in the supply chain. It's volatile for a lot of different reasons. And the question that we're asking is, how can we empower the supply chain or the coffee industry in 2024? What are your ideas around that?
There's a lot of ideas in terms of like, as a person that is an origin and deals with farmers, where the coffee comes from. Yeah. And there's a lot of struggling about labor, for example, and how labor since before COVID, but after COVID also kind of like affected it in a way of, how people are struggling in farmers. And one of the comments that we have in conversations is are we going to run out of coffee? Like
Okay.
that's a kind of like a thing that we talked about with
Yeah, we talk
different
about it a lot.
producers and in general. And it's like, well, in 5 or 10 years, we're not going to have coffee. Obviously, we will, but not as much as we can because a lot of farmers are just switching over.
Yeah.
That's not answering your question, but
No, keep going. Keep going.
but I think that kind of like that is just to empowering, and it's an appreciation. In my perspective of Guatemala, I think that overall my country, or Guatemala in general, needs a little bit more promotion in terms of understanding how difficult has been and how difficult it is as price-wise, and how labor, like, it's just becoming different to produce coffee. And just to produce, and besides that, producing specialty coffee and produce amazing coffees, or Cup of Excellence winner coffees. You know, it's something that it has been, I think that overall, like, a lot of people have that idea of, yeah, we'll have a geisha 90 plus, whatever. But it's hard, you know, to produce that kind of like those coffees overall, and just to maintain something to producers, to convince them to do it, or to switch them over and say, come to this side and make just specialty, or make just naturals, or all this kind of stuff that can, you know, it's so I think we need a little bit more understanding and promotions terms origin and Central America in general, that I think is lacking that. Honduras as well. Like, they have amazing coffees, we just need to find them, and it's a hard work, right? So I think it's part of like that promotion day by day. Like, that's what I'm doing here. Like, besides giving you samples or whatever about getting these coffees, is about talking that we need to spread a little bit more the word of you know, that we have amazing coffees. Try them out. Be open to new origins, you know?
And is marketing the way that you guys feel that, is that the empowerment that Guatemala needs?
I think that Guatemala has been known for a country that is a wash process coffee, and I think El Salvador has a little bit more, you know, experience or like marketing about naturals, and let's say Colombia, it's on the top of the head of everyone's. But Guatemala has already started that. But I think that we need to have a little bit more conversation towards, or try them out into little cafes or coffee shops that you can find really good coffees. Not that I know that people love wash coffees, and there are people that love naturals, but
everyone's got their thing.
Yeah, exactly. But there's in the middle point of like, now there's a open book that we can, Guatemala or Honduras, can offer you all of this, you know, rainbow of colors and tastes that before they didn't.
Right.
So, and I think we're improving, like, and it's part of like showcasing all of these coffees. So,
tell me, when it comes to the volatility of the next 2 years, how aware are Guatemalan producers and people in coffee in general, not just the producers, but how do they feel about the volatility of the next couple of years?
I think at some points, like, it feels like dangerous. It feels like you're talking to someone. Like, agronomy in Guatemala was one of the main things as a traditional, and now it's like, I have a son, and it's like, oh, I want to go and study engineering or systems or electronics or, I don't know, business. And it's like, who's going to be in charge of that farm
Where's
later?
the next generation of
exactly.
producers coming from?
And social media and all of this, like, at the end, like, it's a good thing, but on the agronomy side, it's becoming a bad thing, because
it's endangered species,
exactly,
right?
And that's
producers.
And that's kind of like the conversation that keeps going of like, we're not going to have coffee in 5 years, because besides cost and everything, it's just becoming like, who's going to take over that, right?
Consolidation is what's going to take over that.
Maybe. I mean, consolidation, or part of like, do we have to get together and embrace everyone as one arrow up front? Or, you know, let's say Guatemala, that everyone's like having like like in a pot and like all of this, I forgot the word, you know, just crawling on the sides and see who you can pull from out the sides. And, and I think that in general terms, and we have discussion, it's not just Guatemala, but Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, like Central American countries trying to get together and able to be an arrow of, you know, like African coffees, they go together, like
Right.
Central American coffees
How
just
can
go
you
together.
unify?
Yeah, exactly. Because I think, as you're saying, like consolidation in a good way.
But where I'm coming from is similar to what I think is going to happen here if people are not smarter about the way that they're managing their businesses. With the volatility of what's coming, there's an exposure there for bigger companies to come in and wait for the volatility to tip in the negative way. And they'll just come, and it's already happening. There's a company that is buying businesses, a green coffee trading company in Saudi Arabia, that is just going out and offering ridiculous amounts of money to every green coffee importer.
Just to have like a monopoly kind of thing? Yeah.
Right? And we don't have to mention names. Everyone knows who I'm talking about. But that's the way that consolidation is going to happen. They don't have to really wait. The time is right. The volatility has already started. Smaller green coffee importers are feeling the pinch already.
Right.
When someone comes to them and says, we're going to give you $20 million for your shitty little importing company, they're going to say yes.
Yeah, of course. Like, who will not, right?
But they're not buying the shitty little importing company. They're buying their customers.
For sure.
Right? So there's already, they're buying their supply chain. They're buying all of the things. They're buying their leases. They're buying all of that kind of stuff. And we'll see that happen here in Dubai with regards to cafes.
I mean, I agree with you. At some point, that's kind of like the thing that we're trying to do as specialty-wise, and it's relationships, right?
Right.
You know, like Kim, for example, like it doesn't matter if he'll buys or not buys coffee or whatever, but for example, we're having a straight-up relationship and just sitting down and enjoying each other. And that's kind of like where the tradition of coffee started, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that money cannot buy. At the end of the game, you will go, and sometimes even producer or buyers will go with the person that they can be connected, you know. And this happened in a lot of companies cafes that they've been sold or buy out, and you know the supply chain will go through whatever relationship we have. So going forward, I think that relationships is one of the things that we should be keeping on. Transparency, and I think that transparency is something that we talked about a lot, and it's like, oh, we're transparent in everything, but I think that not 100% of the people is very transparent on deals, on business, and how to just be transparent of even friendship. And
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of here like that, like it's just trying to be good with anyone instead of being jealousy of who can be better, you know. And then it's not about being better, it's just about growth together. Because we're growing specialty coffee, right?
Well, whether it's specialty coffee or commercial coffee, doing good business is doing good business. Like, and the
Right.
thing that I really admire about Raw is that they are all about relationships.
Right.
And they're very transparent about that. If they don't have a good relationship with you, they're not going to do business with you. They don't care what you're selling. They don't care how great your product is. If you don't make sense to do good business with, they're not going to make good business with you.
Right, of course.
It's just not what their value structure is. They treat their staff the same way. I am not an employee of Raw, just so that you know.
No, but I agree with you, because I mean, even though, I mean, things can go wrong, right? Sideways of like, you're always going to have mistakes, but what I have learned, it's just about if you're transparent with each other, like I screw it up, like, or there's something wrong. Just,
yeah, exactly.
It doesn't matter, because I mean, you're not going to be perfect, but it's just about being loyal to someone and just to be transparent.
Yeah.
And I think that that's kind of like value is more about the volatility of money, just getting everything.
I think you're absolutely right. In the sense that, I take the view that no matter what happens over the next 2 years, with all the volatility, the relationships that you built and how you built your business,
Correct.
This is the time when you're going to see whether you built sustainably or you didn't. If you kick the can down the road on relationships and good buying practices and FOMO and all that kind of stuff, this is the time when I think that we're going to see, Warren Buffett has this saying, when the tide goes out, that's when you see who's swimming naked.
Right. Yeah. I agree.
And this is the time.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited because since the podcast began, we have been advocating for people to build smart. We have been advocating for people to make sure that they build sustainably and that they put the effort into great relationships and pay fair prices and don't screw people over. And a lot of people thought that was naive.
At some point, it's like, I agree. I agree with you, but at some point, it's just becoming that word of sustainable. And it's just like,
Right.
it's a bigger word of like, depending on where you are, it's sustainable or not, right?
But to your point, a company like Raw is the perfect example of a company that has stood the test of time
Right.
by building sustainably. That doesn't mean you don't go through hard times. In fact, it means you're most certainly going to go through hard times. Why? Because what we mean by sustainably is for the long term.
Yeah, I agree. Again, that's supposed to be like the word that it's paying for prices and everything, and it's just like, it's a big word, and even for not knowing your cost, and that's a bigger word even in producing countries, right? But I think that being sustainable is just being like, again, transparency. I think that overall
That's
what we're
that's
going,
the empowerment, right? Like, it's been really interesting seeing what different people think about is the key to that. And so for you, it's transparency.
Yeah, I
right?
think that overall coming into that, like for me, it's really being transparent and building up. Because I mean, for me, 4 years coming here like every year, it's just about building that, but it's about transparency. Not everything will go perfect as a chord, but it's just about having that close
openness
and seeing that we can move forward, but we move it together and we move it in a transparent way.
And it sounds like in a respectful way, like not tricking each other, not lying to each other,
Exactly.
not like managing the expectations, having some clarity around that.
Because at the end of the time, like, even coffee industry is like a kind of a school, right? Like, it's so big, but at the same time, it's so small that no matter what you do, no matter what you are, it's just about, not about reputation, but it does at the same time.
Oh,
because,
totally about reputation. Because once you screw
but
somebody
not social
over,
media reputation, because now it's like,
No.
I have so many followers and blah, 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 whatever. But
fuck that. I'm not interested in that.
Like, it's just about knowing what you can do, we sit down and we can settle and just talk about openly. So it's I think that we're still missing some of that transparency and some of that openness that can give you, even for getting better, right? Because it's like, I don't like this is crap, like we need to move forward from this, and without no one getting offended, because I think
everyone's going to get offended,
but-
my friend.
Yeah,
but that's okay. That's not your problem.
well, it is and it isn't at the same time, because it's like, what do you want to sell, or you want to get, it's an example, but you want to sell coffee to someone, or you want to be like
A crusader.
yeah, or be licking his boots and able
Right.
for me to buy, but then it's just like a showcase of social media, which a lot of people are falling through that.
Right.
So it's, where do you want to go? What do you want to choose, right? So I think that also it's like, we need to know and choose, because some people are, that's another subject, but I'm going through another go. But I mean, transparency.
That's for another
that's
podcast series.
Exactly.
And we will have you back on the podcast at some
I'll
point.
be happy to.
Inshallah. We have a tradition as we wrap up this episode of the podcast. Before I do, folks, check the show notes and you can find links to Paradigm Coffee.
Thanks. Yeah.
No problem. We have a tradition. We sign off with peace, love, and peanut butter, and we get the guests to sign off the episodes
Okay,
at World of
nice.
Coffee. So do you want to sign us off with peace, love, and peanut butter?
Peace off a peanut butter.
Have an amazing rest of your day, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
I really hope you enjoyed this episode, friends. Please don't forget to show us some love by subscribing, liking, commenting, and most of all, sharing this podcast with your friends. Check the show notes for links, including our sponsors and our Patreon. And stay tuned for more great conversations on the Daily Coffee Pro by Map It Forward.